Terror threat assessment obtained by 7:30 links sovereign citizens to firearms, plans to shoot civilians, kidnap judges and murder sheriff's officers. The document also states that Australian sovereign citizens should be considered a potential terrorist threat.
We'll show you an excerpt very, very shortly to a Facebook group called Freeman Delusion, the organised pseudo-legal commercial argument in Australia. Take a listen.
Let's do it with some assistance. And who better to assist us than Rob Sudi, the man on this subject. Rob runs the incredible blog site Freeman Delusion. I have mentioned that blog in my videos numerous times. Rob put together what I think is the definitive encyclopedia and historical and current resource on Australian Sovset rhetoric, figures and so on. Rob's been running battles with Sovset figures and influences for longer than most of us ever even knew what this idea was. Rob's actually an ex-Sovset himself. He told me all about it in a chat from out in his remote property where he lives mostly off the grid. What's so valuable is that he's been around for long enough that he's been having arguments with the founding father parasites of pseudo-legal shit in Australia. He's been having arguments with them on Facebook since they started. You know what I mean? That history is really, really important.
So today we have Rob Sudi, who is the leading expert on Sovsets in this country, I would say by a long stretch. His website, the Freeman Delusion, comprehensively covers the history, the case law, and the players of the OPCA movement. OPCA stands for Organised Pseudolegal Commercial Argument, which is it's a term the Associate Chief Justice John Rook of the Court of the Queen's Bench in Alberta used to describe the vexatious and incredibly stupid litigants that claim to be freemen on the land and sovereigns to themselves.
Yeah, probably say this a couple of times in the show. Rob Sudi is Australia's resident expert in sovereign citizens.
Or OPCA adherents, because you know he's on your shoulder.
Yes, that's right. So his website, freemandelusion.com, I believe that's it, is something to check out, listeners, if you're interested in pursuing this more.
An actual, it's a law database. It's great. It's really, really well written. And as a law student, I want him to become a student at law, but he just fucking refuses to, but it's fine. Anyway, hey, Rob.
While we're on the topic of the courts, Lieutenant Dan tried his hand at a Sovset defence that resulted in additional charge of contempt being laid.
Wow.
And a couple of his supporters being removed from the court. I don't know. I'm thinking we need to buy them a subscription to Freeman Delusion. Maybe Rob Sudi can bring them back from the brink. I don't know.
At very least, he should be talking to senior police and senior police commanders.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happens when you come across these people. These are the triggers, so they can put in place some training.
And he needs to stop doing it for free. Just saying, Rob.
What stands out for you with Rob's case?
I should mention I'm a bit chuffed to hear Rob speak because I've followed his stuff for a couple of years. And I think what Rob highlights is the nuances that I think get lost in the public discourse. And one, I think, okay, so every time you've said Bunnings Karen today, I've scoffed or I've smirked because it has that association with me. It's very meme worthy at the moment. You know, it's very dominant in popular discourse. However, I think it's really important to actually take it seriously and not scoff. That's probably my first starting point and probably my challenge just as a human being that has a sense of humor, just to not scoff when someone comes to you with these sorts of things. Because the assumption is that people that buy into these ideologies are gullible or stupid, and it's anything but. And quite often we see that in a lot of extremist movements where there are highly, highly intelligent people engaged with these sorts of things.
The former magistrate, David Halpern, joins us now.
Especially since I've left the bench. We've become friends. A fellow called Robert Sudi, who runs a website called the Freeman Delusion, which devotes itself to debunking sovereign citizen pseudo-law issues. When I was sitting in Grafton Court, I had a fellow come before me who started arguing about a traffic matter on some common law principles, Magna Carta, sovereign citizenship type arguments. He's at that good end of the spectrum where people were challenging the law with some unique arguments, but they were misguided, and I fortunately had just been preparing an education paper on it for other magistrates, and so I gave him all this material saying basically what he was spouting was wrong and here's why. And he asked for an adjournment and took it off and read the stuff and came back a week later saying, "You're right, I can't drive without my rego and I'm going to pay it, and sorry for wasting your time, let's get on with our lives." But he then went and formed something which is called the Freeman Delusion website, which is the leading Australian and probably worldwide website on the Freeman Delusion. In other words, challenging sovereign citizenship. And it's a collection of articles and his own writings, but also expert reports and references to court cases around the world showing that these arguments are wrong. And he started researching it and writing this website, which anyone can access and have a look online, where he painstakingly, case by case, demolishes the arguments of the pseudo-law sovereign citizen movement. And he does so with great reference to law, to research, to academic publications. And this is somebody who, I don't actually know what his educational level is, but he's certainly not a lawyer, and I don't think he went to uni. Now, the reason I tell that story is because people are capable of change, and people who are spouting this material are neither necessarily right-wing, necessarily ill-educated, or necessarily misguided in the sense that they're deliberately taking on stuff that they know is wrong. And by entering into honest conversations with them, I think you can change minds. So my best advice to people who are delving into this stuff is to treat them with respect and accepting that people can change and get out of the rabbit hole that they're climbing down. Some people are just too far gone, but generally speaking, I think calm and sensible conversation can do an enormous amount.